Commander Ra stood in the cold hall of the Galactic Council and waited for her future to be decided. The lights above her head were too bright. The air smelled like metal and recycled oxygen. Around her, dozens of alien diplomats spoke in low voices, making deals and breaking promises like they did every cycle. Her skin was pale blue, and her eyes were silver like polished mirrors. She stood taller than most species in the galaxy, and her uniform bore the marks of 15 years of military service. She had fought in 9 major battles. She had killed more enemies than she could count. She had never lost a ship under her command. But today none of that mattered. Today she was not a commander. She was a bargaining chip. The war with the Dominion had been going on for 300 years. The Empire had been losing for the last 50. The enemy was too large, too powerful, too willing to sacrifice their own soldiers in endless waves. Every year the Dominion pushed deeper into space. Every year more colonies fell. Every year more of her people died. The Council had found a solution, an alliance with the humans. Ra did not think much of humans. They were a young species, barely 50 years into their galactic journey. They had small ships, limited technology, and short lives. Most of them died before they reached 100 years old. By standards, they were children playing at being adults. But the humans had something they needed. They had numbers. They had factories that could build warships faster than any other species. And they had soldiers who were willing to fight and die for causes that were not their own. The alliance would give the access to human resources. In return, the humans would get technology and protection. It was a fair trade on paper. But the humans wanted something more. They wanted a symbol, a sign that they were serious about this partnership. They wanted a marriage between their two species. And so Ra had been chosen. Her father, High Marshal, had explained it to her in his office 3 days ago. His voice had been calm, almost gentle, as he told her that the future of their entire civilization rested on her shoulders. He said that he was proud of her. He said that she was the only one he trusted with this duty. He never asked if she wanted to do it. She had not cried. She had not argued. She had simply nodded and accepted her orders, the same way she had accepted every order in her 15 years of service. That was what soldiers did. Now she stood in the council hall, waiting to meet the man she would marry. His name was Daniel Cole. He was a lieutenant in Earth's Colonial Defense Force. His file said he was 32 years old, which made him barely an adult by human standards. He had served in 3 minor conflicts on the edge of human space. He had no notable achievements. He had no family connections. He was, by every measure, completely ordinary. Ra wondered why the humans had chosen him. Perhaps they did not value this alliance as much as they claimed. Perhaps they simply had no one better to offer. The doors at the far end of the hall opened, and a group of humans walked in. They were all wearing dark uniforms with silver buttons. Their faces were strange to her, with their soft skin and small eyes. They moved differently than, with shorter steps and more movement in their arms. One of them stepped forward from the group. He was average height for a human, which made him short by standards. His hair was dark brown, cut close to his head. His eyes were a color she had never seen before, something between green and gray, like the ocean on a cloudy day. He walked up to her and stopped. For a moment they just looked at each other. Then he smiled. It was a small smile, barely there, but it changed his whole face. It made him look younger. It made him look kind. "Commander Ra," he said. His voice was quiet but clear. "I'm Daniel Cole. I know this isn't what either of us would have chosen, but I want you to know that I take this seriously. I'll do my best to be worthy of your people's trust." She had expected arrogance. She had expected fear. She had not expected honesty. "This is a political arrangement," she said. Her voice came out colder than she meant it to. "Nothing more." He nodded. "I understand." That was all he said. No arguments, no wounded pride, just acceptance. The ceremony happened that same day. It was quick and cold, held in a small room with gray walls and no windows. A council official read the words that bound them together. There were no flowers. There was no music. There were only politicians and cameras, recording the moment for the news feeds. When it was over, Daniel shook her hand. His grip was firm but not aggressive. His skin was warm, warmer than she expected. "Thank you," he said, "for doing this." She did not know how to respond, so she said nothing. They were given quarters on the diplomatic vessel Horizon's Edge. The rooms were large by human standards, small by standards. There were 2 bedrooms, separated by a common area. Daniel took the smaller room without being asked. For the first few weeks, they barely spoke. Daniel spent most of his time in the tactical center, studying star maps and battle reports. He had been assigned as a tactical advisor to the Alliance fleet, a position that most officers saw as meaningless. What could a human teach them about war? But Ra watched him. She could not help it. There was something about him that did not match what she expected. He was quiet but not shy. He listened more than he spoke. When he asked questions, they were good questions, the kind that showed he was really thinking about the answers. And there was something in his eyes, something she could not name, a patience that seemed too deep for someone so young. One night she found him alone in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. She had come to clear her head, and she almost turned around when she saw him there. But something made her stay. "Do you miss Earth?" she asked. He turned to look at her. That small smile appeared again. "Sometimes," he said, "but I've been away from home for a long time. You get used to it." "Why did you agree to this?" she asked. "This marriage you could have refused." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because someone had to, and because I thought I could do some good here." "You think you can make a difference? One human in a war that has lasted 3 centuries. He looked back at the stars. "I don't know," he said, "but I'm going to try." She did not know why, but she believed him. She left him there, alone with the stars and his quiet patience. And as she walked back to her room, she thought about the strange human she had married. He was not what she expected. He was not what anyone expected. And somewhere deep in her chest, in a place she did not like to think about, she felt something shift. Something small. Something she could not yet name. She pushed it down and kept walking. There was a war to fight. There was no time for anything else. The alarm woke Ra from a dreamless sleep. Red lights flashed in her quarters, and the ship's voice announced a priority alert. She was dressed and moving within 30 seconds. The war room was full when she arrived. Holographic displays showed star maps and ship positions. Officers shouted orders and reports. In the middle of it all stood Admiral, the oldest and most experienced commander in the fleet. His face was grim. "What happened?" Ra asked. Prime said, "The Dominion attacked 3 hours ago. They came out of nowhere, 400 ships, maybe more." Ra felt cold spread through her chest. Prime was a border colony with 500,000 civilians. The defense fleet stationed there had only 100 ships. "They're calling for help," continued. "But by the time we get there, it might be too late." The council gave their orders within the hour. Ra was assigned to lead a relief fleet of 50 ships. It was not enough. Everyone knew it was not enough, but it was all they could spare. As she prepared to leave for her ship, she found Daniel waiting by the door. He was wearing his tactical officer uniform, a data pad in his hand. "I'm coming with you," he said. "This is a combat mission," she said, "not a political event." "I know, but I'm part of your command structure now, and I might be useful." She wanted to say no. She wanted to tell him that this was real war, not some simulation on a screen, but there was something in his eyes that stopped her, that same quiet patience, that same hidden depth. "Fine," she said, "but stay out of the way." They reached Prime in 16 hours. What they found was worse than they expected. The Dominion had brought 420 ships. The colony's defense fleet had been reduced to 43. The planet's orbital stations were on fire. Escape pods filled the space around them like scattered seeds. Admiral opened a channel to all ships. His voice was heavy with the weight of what he was about to say. "We are outnumbered nearly 5-1, he said. "Our primary objective is to evacuate as many civilians as possible. We will conduct a fighting retreat toward the jump point. All ships, prepare for tactical withdrawal." Ra understood the logic. They could not win this battle. The best they could do was save some lives and escape before the Dominion destroyed them all. But it felt wrong. It felt like surrender. She looked at Daniel. He was staring at the tactical display, his eyes moving across the enemy positions. His fingers tapped against his data pad in a rhythm she did not recognize. "You have something to say," she said. It was not a question. "I have an idea," he said, "but the Admiral won't listen to me." "What idea?" He pointed at the display. "Look at the asteroid belt on the far side of the planet. It's dense, full of large rocks and radiation pockets. The Dominion ships are big and slow. If we can draw them into the belt, their numbers won't matter. They'll have to come at us in small groups." Ra studied the display. He was right about the belt. It was dangerous territory, the kind of place smart commanders avoided. "That's risky," she said. "We could lose ships to the asteroids alone." "We're going to lose ships either way," Daniel said. "At least this way we have a chance to hurt them back." She thought about it for a long moment. Then she opened a channel to Admiral. "Admiral, Lieutenant Cole has a tactical suggestion. I think you should hear it." There was a pause. Then's voice came back, cold and dismissive. "I don't have time for human ideas, Commander. Follow your orders." The channel closed. Ra looked at Daniel. She expected to see anger or hurt on his face, but there was nothing, just that calm patience. He simply nodded and stepped back. The retreat began. Ships formed up and started moving toward the jump point. The Dominion followed, their weapons firing, picking off the slower vessels one by one. Ra watched her tactical display. She watched her allies die, and she made a decision. "All ships in my squadron," she said over the command channel. "Change course. We're heading for the asteroid belt." "Commander," one of her captains sounded confused. "That's not the retreat vector." "I know, trust me." She looked at Daniel. "You're on tactical, tell us what to do." For the first time since she had met him, Daniel smiled a real smile. Not small and careful, but wide and alive. He stepped up to the tactical console and began to work. "All ships follow my lead," he said. His voice was different now, stronger, more certain. "Spread formation, keep your distance from each other. When we enter the belt, cut your engines and drift. Let the rocks hide you." 15 ships followed Ra into the asteroid belt. The Dominion saw them go and sent 50 ships to chase them. The belt was chaos. Rocks the size of buildings tumbled through space. Radiation clouded sensors. The Dominion ships had to slow down, had to spread out, had to be careful. Daniel's voice came through the comm, calm and steady. "Wait for it, let them come deeper. Don't fire until I give the word." The enemy ships pushed forward. They were looking for easy kills. They did not expect a trap. "Now," Daniel said. 15 ships opened fire at once. The first wave of Dominion vessels exploded before they knew what hit them. The rest tried to regroup, but the asteroids made it impossible. They were too big, too slow, too crowded together. Daniel gave orders like he was reading a script that no one else could see. He predicted where the enemy would move before they moved. He found weaknesses that Ra's own officers had missed. He turned the chaos of the asteroid belt into a weapon. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, 37 Dominion ships were destroyed. The rest fled back to their main fleet. Ra had lost 2 ships, 2 against 37. The retreat was successful. The civilians were evacuated. And when the fleet regrouped at the jump point, Every officer was asking the same question. Who was the human? What had he done? Admiral called Ra to his ship for a private meeting. She expected anger. She had disobeyed his orders. She had risked her squadron on a human's plan. But when she entered his quarters, the old admiral looked tired, not angry. He sat behind his desk and stared at her with eyes that had seen 300 years of war. "That should not have worked," he said. "But it did," Ra replied. "The human Cole, how did he do it?" She thought about the question. She thought about Daniel's calm voice, his steady hands, his eyes that seemed to see things no one else could see. "I don't know," she said, "but I think we should find out." Was quiet for a long time, then he nodded slowly. "Keep him close," he said. "Watch him, learn what he knows." Ra returned to her ship. She found Daniel in the common area, eating a simple meal by himself. He looked up when she entered. "Admiral wants to know how you did it," she said. "What did you tell him?" "The truth, that I don't know." Daniel set down his fork. He looked at her with those strange green-gray eyes, and she felt like he was seeing through her, seeing everything she tried to hide. "Humans have been fighting wars since before we had fire," he said. "We've been killing each other for 100,000 years. We learned things, not just tactics or strategies, something deeper, something in our blood." "You're saying you were born for war?" He shook his head. "Not born for it, shaped by it. Every generation that survived passed something down to the next. Call it instinct. Call it pattern recognition. I don't really know what it is. I just know that when I look at a battlefield, I can see how it's going to move. I can feel where the enemy will go before they go there." Ra sat down across from him. "That sounds impossible." "Maybe it is," he said. "Maybe I just got lucky today." But she knew that was not true. She had seen him work. She had heard the certainty in his voice. Whatever Daniel Cole was, it was not luck. "You could have told yourself," she said. "You could have demanded credit." "I don't want credit," Daniel said. "I want to help end this war." She believed him. She did not know why, but she believed him completely. "Get some sleep," she said, standing up. "We have a long way to go." She left him there and walked back to her quarters. But for a long time, she could not sleep. She lay in the dark and thought about the human she had married, the human who should have been nothing, the human who was turning out to be something else entirely. Something the galaxy had never seen before. The news of Prime spread through the fleet like fire through dry grass. Within days, everyone knew the story. A human tactical officer had turned a retreat into a victory. He had destroyed 37 enemy ships with only 15 of his own. He had done what no commander could do. The whispers started quietly at first. Soldiers talked about him in the mess halls. Officers discussed him in private meetings. Some said he was lucky. Some said he was dangerous. Some said he was something new, something the galaxy had not seen in 1,000 years. Daniel ignored all of it. He went about his daily routine like nothing had changed. He woke up early, ate simple meals, and spent his days studying battle records. He asked questions that nobody else thought to ask. He took notes in a language Ra could not read. She found herself watching him more and more. At first, she told herself it was duty. She was following Admiral's orders. She was keeping the human close. She was learning what he knew. But as the weeks passed, she realized it was something else. She was curious. She was interested. For the first time in her long military career, she had met someone she could not understand. One evening, she found him in the ship's library, surrounded by data pads and holographic displays. He was reading about a battle that had happened 200 years ago, long before humans had ever reached the stars. "You're studying the siege of," she said. He looked up. "It's interesting. Your general held a defensive position against superior forces for 3 months. He used the terrain better than anyone I've ever read about. Is a legend among my people. Children learn his name before they learn to walk." He should be a legend everywhere, Daniel said. The tactics he used are still relevant today, maybe more relevant than your current commanders realize. Ra sat down across from him. The library was empty except for the two of them. The lights were low, and the stars outside the window looked close enough to touch. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course." "At Prime, when you were giving orders, you looked different. You sounded different, like you were someone else." Daniel was quiet for a moment. He set down his data pad and folded his hands together. "Humans have a lot of words for what I do," he said. "Some call it battle sense. Some call it tactical intuition. Some just call it being in the zone. But I think the real word is memory." Memory. Not my own memory, something older. Something that got passed down through thousands of generations. When I step onto a battlefield, I can feel all of them. All the soldiers who came before me. All the wars they fought. All the lessons they learned. It's like having 1,000 voices in my head, all telling me what to do. Ra did not know what to say. The idea was strange, almost frightening, but it also made a strange kind of sense. "Your species has been fighting for a long time," she said. "Since before we were even human," Daniel agreed. "We've been killing each other since we lived in caves. We invented weapons before we invented writing. War is in our blood, in our bones, in the way we think. We can't escape it, so we learn to use it." "That sounds like a curse." "Sometimes it is," he said, "but sometimes it's a gift. It depends on what you do with it." She thought about her own people. There had been a peaceful civilization once, thousands of years ago. They had become warriors out of necessity when the first alien invaders came to their world. But they had never truly embraced war the way humans seemed to. "You don't enjoy it," she said. It was not a question. She could see it in his eyes and the way he carried himself. "You don't enjoy killing." "No," he said. "I hate it. Every time I give an order that sends someone to their death, a piece of me dies too. But I do it anyway because the alternative is worse. If I don't fight, the people I care about will suffer. That's the only reason I need." Ra felt something shift inside her. She had met many warriors in her life. Most of them either loved violence or pretended to feel nothing. She had never met someone who admitted the truth so openly. "You're not what I expected," she said. Daniel smiled that small, careful smile. "Neither are you." The silence between them was comfortable. For the first time since their marriage, Ra did not feel like she was sitting with a stranger. Over the next few weeks, things changed between them. They started eating meals together. They started talking about things other than war. Daniel told her about Earth, about the blue oceans and green forests and cities that stretched toward the sky. She told him about the silver mountains and crystal lakes and the songs her people sang at harvest time. They were still not lovers. They were still not even friends, not really, but they were something new, something that neither of them had words for. The fleet received new orders. They were moving toward the front lines, preparing for a major offensive. Admiral requested Daniel's presence at all tactical meetings. The other officers no longer looked at him with dismissal. Now they looked at him with respect, with curiosity, and sometimes with fear. One night, Ra found Daniel on the observation deck again. He was staring out at the stars, his face reflected in the dark glass. "You know they're talking about you," she said. "I know. Some of them are calling you a battle god, a warrior from legend." He laughed, but there was no joy in it. "I'm not a god. I'm just a man who knows how to read a battlefield." "That's not what they see." He turned to look at her. His eyes were tired, heavy with a weight she was only beginning to understand. "Do you know what the hardest part of this is?" he asked. "It's not the fighting. It's not the killing. It's knowing that people are looking at me like I have all the answers, like I can save them, and knowing that one day I might not be able to." Ra stepped closer to him. She could feel the warmth of his body, smell the strange human scent of his skin. "You don't have to carry that alone," she said. "Yes, I do. That's what it means to lead." She wanted to argue with him. She wanted to tell him that he was wrong, that he had people who would help him, who would stand beside him. But she knew he would not believe her. Not yet. So instead, she just stood there with him, watching the stars, sharing the silence. And she realized that somewhere along the way, something had changed inside her. The human she had married for duty was becoming something more. The next day, intelligence reports arrived with disturbing news. The Dominion had been asking questions. They wanted to know about the human officer who had turned the battle at Prime. They were gathering information. They were making plans. "They're afraid of you," Ra told Daniel when she shared the report. He read the data carefully, his expression calm and focused. "Good," he said. "Fear makes people make mistakes. You're not worried." He looked at her with those strange, deep eyes. "I've been waiting my whole life for this, for a fight that matters, for an enemy worth facing. The Dominion has killed millions of your people. They'll keep killing until someone stops them. If they want to be afraid of me, let them. Maybe it will save some lives." She did not know how to respond. She had never met anyone like him. He was gentle and kind and thoughtful, but underneath all of that was something hard, something unbreakable, something that had been forged in the fires of 100,000 years of human war. "What are you?" she asked softly. He thought about the question for a long time. Then he answered, "I'm human, that's all, just human." But Ron knew that was not the whole truth. Whatever Daniel Cole was, it was not just anything. He was something the galaxy had never seen before, something dangerous, something wonderful. And she was starting to realize that she never wanted to let him go. The Dominion came with everything they had. 230 warships appeared in the skies above Eth, the most important fortress world in the Empire. They came out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their weapons already charging. They had planned this attack for months. They intended to end the war in a single devastating strike. Eth was home to 300 million people. It held the largest military shipyards in space. If it fell, the Empire would fall with it. The Alliance fleet had only 80 ships to defend it. High Marshal called an emergency council. Every senior officer in the system crowded into the war room of his flagship. The holographic display showed the enemy positions, a wall of red markers surrounding the planet like a tightening fist. "This is a trap," Admiral said. "They want us to commit our forces here. When we do, they'll destroy us all." "If we don't defend Eth, we lose everything," another officer argued. "We have no choice." The debate went on for hours. Plans were proposed and rejected. Numbers were calculated and recalculated. Everyone knew the truth. They were outmatched. They were going to lose. Finally, High Marshal raised his hand for silence. The room fell quiet. Every eye turned to the old warrior who had led the through 3 decades of war. "There is one option we have not discussed," he said. His voice was tired but steady. "Lieutenant Cole." Murmurs spread through the room. Some officers looked angry, some looked hopeful, a few looked afraid. "He is human," one captain said. "He has been with us for barely 3 months. You cannot be serious." "I have studied the reports from Prime," said. "I have spoken with those who were there. The human sees things we cannot see. He knows things we cannot know. If we have any chance of surviving this battle, he is that chance." He looked across the room, and his eyes found Ra. "Commander, bring your husband here." Ra found Daniel in the tactical center, studying the enemy formations. He already knew what was happening. He had been watching the situation develop for hours. "The High Marshal wants to see you," she said. He nodded and followed her without a word. When they entered the war room, every officer turned to look at the human. Daniel walked to the center of the room and stood before the holographic display. He did not look nervous. He did not look afraid. He looked like he belonged there. "Lieutenant Cole said, I am giving you field command of the defense fleet. All ships, all forces, all decisions. Can you do it? The room held its breath. Daniel looked at the display. He looked at the 230 enemy ships. He looked at the 80 defenders. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, yes. The protests started immediately. Officers shouted about tradition, about experience, about the impossibility of trusting a human with so much responsibility. Silence them all with a single look. The decision is made. Lieutenant Cole has operational command. You will follow his orders as you would follow mine. Dismissed. The siege of Eth began that night. Daniel did not sleep. He could not afford to. He set up a command station on the bridge of Ra's ship and began coordinating the defense. Orders flowed from him in a constant stream, each one precise and clear. He divided the fleet into small, fast groups that could strike and retreat. He positioned defense platforms in patterns that maximized their coverage. He coordinated with the ground forces, making sure every soldier knew their role. He turned the planet itself into a weapon, using its geography and infrastructure against the attackers. The Dominion expected an easy victory. They expected to crumble the way they always had before. They did not expect Daniel Cole. The first assault came on the second day. 50 Dominion ships pushed toward the northern shipyards. Daniel let them come close enough that they thought victory was certain. Then he sprang his trap. Hidden defense platforms opened fire. Ships emerged from behind the planet's moon. The attackers were caught in a crossfire that destroyed 20 of them in the first 5 minutes. The survivors retreated. The Dominion commanders regrouped and tried again. For 3 weeks they tried everything. They launched frontal assaults. They attempted flanking maneuvers. They sent special forces to sabotage the defense systems. Every time Daniel was ready for them. Every time they failed. Ra watched him work, and she felt something she had never felt before. It was not just admiration. It was not just respect. It was something deeper, something that frightened her even as it drew her closer to him. He was exhausted. She could see it in his eyes, in the way his hands trembled when he thought no one was looking. He slept in 2-hour intervals, waking up to check reports and issue new orders. He barely ate. He pushed himself harder than any officer she had ever seen. But he never stopped. He never gave up. He never let anyone see him doubt. On the 15th day, the Dominion launched their largest assault yet. 100 ships came at Eth from 3 directions, coordinated to overwhelm the defenders through sheer force of numbers. Daniel responded with a plan that nobody expected. He pulled the fleet back, abandoning the outer defense lines. The Dominion thought they were winning. They pushed forward eagerly, their ships spreading out to claim their victory. Then Daniel gave the order, and the planet's defense grid came alive. Hidden weapons emerged from the surface, targeting the exposed enemy ships. The fleet swept in from behind, catching the attackers between 2 walls of fire. It was not a battle. It was a massacre. 63 Dominion ships were destroyed in 6 hours. The rest fled back to their main fleet, broken and bleeding. Ra found Daniel after the battle standing alone in a storage room near the engineering deck. His back was against the wall. His hands were shaking. His eyes were closed. She had never seen him like this. She had never seen the mask slip. "Daniel," she said softly. He opened his eyes. For a moment he looked lost, like a man who had wandered too far from home. 63 ships, he said. His voice was rough. Thousands of lives, I killed them all. They were the enemy. They were trying to kill us. I know that doesn't make it easier. He looked at her and she saw the weight he carried. The weight of every order, every death, every impossible choice. Sometimes I wonder if I'm still human, or if I've become something else, something that was made for this. She did not know what to say. She did not have words that could take away his pain, so she did the only thing she could think of. She took his hand. His fingers were cold, trembling, but they wrapped around hers and held on tight. "You're human," she said. "You're the most human person I've ever met, and you don't have to carry this alone." He looked at her for a long time, then slowly he nodded. They stood there together in the darkness of the storage room, holding hands, sharing the silence. And Ra realized that somewhere along the way, duty had become something else entirely. The siege lasted 3 more weeks. The Dominion threw everything they had at Ev, and Daniel broke them every time. By the time reinforcements arrived, the enemy fleet was in full retreat. They left behind the wreckage of 163 ships. The Alliance had won. When the final reports came in, the war room erupted in celebration. Officers who had doubted Daniel now cheered his name. Soldiers who had never met him spoke of him like a legend. But Daniel did not celebrate. He walked to the observation deck and stared out at the stars. He did not smile. He did not speak. Ra found him there, the way she always did. "You saved 300 million people," she said. "You should be proud." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I'm not proud, I'm relieved, and I'm tired, so tired." She stood beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. "What happens now?" she asked. He turned to look at her. His eyes were different now. The weight was still there, but something else was there too, something that looked like hope. "I don't know," he said, "but I'm glad you're here." She took his hand again. It felt natural now. It felt right. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. And she meant it. The Dominion sued for peace 3 months after the siege of Ev. It was the first time in 300 years that they had asked for negotiations. The first time they had admitted that they could not win. The first time they had shown weakness. The Galactic Council called an assembly to discuss terms. Representatives from a dozen species gathered on the neutral station of Helix Prime, a massive construct floating in the empty space between empires. It was the largest diplomatic event in living memory. Daniel Cole was invited not as a human representative, but as the Supreme Commander of Allied Forces. The title had never been given to anyone outside the founding species. The Council had created it specifically for him. Ra walked beside him as they entered the Great Hall. She wore her formal uniform, decorated with the medals she had earned over 15 years of service. But she knew that no one was looking at her. Every eye in the room was fixed on Daniel. He walked with his shoulders straight and his head high. He did not look like a man who had fought the bloodiest battles of the war. He looked calm, confident, at peace. The transformation from exhausted soldier to composed leader was complete. The hall was massive, filled with hundreds of delegates from across the galaxy. Some were tall and thin, others short and wide. Some had scales, others had feathers. The diversity of intelligent life in the universe was on full display. At the far end of the hall, the Dominion delegation waited. Their leader was a creature called First Commander X, a massive being covered in black armor plates that seemed to grow from his skin. He had commanded the forces that attacked Ev. He had watched his fleet be destroyed by a single human. Daniel approached the podium at the center of the hall. The room fell silent. Every translator device activated, preparing to convert his words into 100 different languages. He spoke simply and clearly. "I did not come here to demand surrender. I did not come here to humiliate the Dominion or claim victory for my species. I came here to offer something better, a future where we do not have to fear each other, a future where the children of every world can grow up in peace." He paused and looked around the room, meeting the eyes of delegates from both sides. War is easy. Any species can learn to kill, any nation can build weapons, but peace is hard. Peace requires courage. It requires trust. It requires the willingness to set aside old hatreds and build something new. That is what I am asking for today. The hall was silent. No one had expected this. They had expected demands. They had expected threats. They had not expected hope. Daniel continued. "I am human, My species has been fighting wars since before we discovered fire. We have killed more of each other than we can count. We have invented weapons that could destroy our entire world. We are not perfect. We are not wise, but we have learned something in all those years of blood. We have learned that the only way forward is together. Alone, we destroy ourselves. Together, we can build something that lasts. He turned to face the Dominion delegation directly. I have killed many of your soldiers. You have killed many of mine. We can keep doing this until one of us is destroyed, or we can choose a different path. The choice is yours. First Commander X rose slowly from his seat. His movements were deliberate, heavy with the weight of his decision. He walked to the center of the hall and stood across from Daniel. You are not what I expected, X said. His voice was deep and rough, translated by the machines into something Ra could understand. When my commanders first reported your victories, I did not believe them. I thought there must be some mistake. No species so young should have produced a warrior like you. Daniel met his gaze without flinching. What changed your mind? X said. I watched the recordings of that battle. I saw what you did. You did not fight like a desperate defender. You fought like someone who had been waiting his whole life for that moment, like someone who was born for war. I was not born for war, Daniel said. I was shaped by it. There is a difference. X studied him for a long moment. Then he asked the question that Ra had been wondering about since the first day she met Daniel. What are you? Daniel considered the question. The whole room waited for his answer. I am human, he said. We are not special because we are strong. We are not special because we are smart. We are special because we refuse to stay down. Every time we are beaten, we learn. Every time we fall, we rise. We have been doing this for 100,000 years. It is not power that defines us. It is persistence. X was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. The Dominion will accept your terms, he said, not because we are afraid, but because you have shown me something I did not expect to find in an enemy. You have shown me honor. Daniel took his hand and shook it. The room erupted in noise. Delegates shouted and applauded. History was being made before their eyes. But Ra barely heard any of it. She was watching Daniel, watching the way he held himself, the way he breathed, the way his eyes found hers across the crowded room, and she knew that this was only the beginning. The ceremony lasted for hours. Treaties were signed. Agreements were made. The war that had lasted 300 years came to an end with a few pieces of paper and a handshake. When it was finally over, Ra found Daniel in their quarters on Helix Prime. He was standing by the window, staring out at the stars. His formal uniform was unbuttoned, and he looked more tired than she had ever seen him. She walked up beside him and said nothing. Sometimes silence was enough. After a long moment, he spoke. When I was young, I used to dream about this, about being someone who mattered, someone who could change things. He laughed softly. I never imagined it would feel like this. What does it feel like? Heavy, he said, like carrying a weight I can never put down. She took his hand. His fingers were warm now, not cold like they had been after Eth. He squeezed her hand gently. I need to tell you something, she said. He turned to look at her. When I married you, I thought it was duty. I thought you were just a symbol, a tool for alliance. I was wrong. She stepped closer to him, close enough that she could feel his breath on her skin. I watched you become something the galaxy has never seen. Not a conqueror, not a tyrant, a protector, a leader, a man who fights not for glory but for the people standing behind him. And somewhere along the way, duty became something more. Daniel's eyes softened. He raised his other hand and touched her face gently, like she was something precious. I knew from the beginning, he said. I saw the strength in you, even when you didn't. I fell for you long before the battles, long before the legends. I just didn't know how to tell you. Ra felt tears forming in her eyes. She had never cried before. Not in 15 years of war, not through all the death and destruction she had witnessed. But now, standing in this room with this strange, wonderful human, she could not hold them back. "I love you," she said. The words felt strange in her mouth. They were not words her people used often, but they were true. Daniel smiled. It was not his small, careful smile. It was wide and real and full of joy. "I love you too," he said. He kissed her. It was gentle at first, then deeper, then like a fire that had been waiting to burn. She wrapped her arms around him and held on like she would never let go. They stood there for a long time, holding each other in the light of 1,000 distant stars. The war was over. The future was uncertain. But for the first time, neither of them faced it alone. Outside the window, the galaxy stretched out in all its infinite beauty. Somewhere out there, new challenges waited, new enemies, new battles to fight. Daniel Cole would face them all. But tonight he was just a man in love, a man